Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Tennessee Twos Disc Golf Podcast. This is episode, what, 36?
36. 36,
36.
my guy.
36. Wow. Um,
Wait,
yeah,
wait, wait.
welcome to
That
the show.
means if my math is correct, that is 9 months, correct? 9 months worth of episodes?
Yeah, basically.
Ooh. Hey,
Yeah,
we're
we
coming up on a year.
missed a week here and a week there, and
Yeah, add it up
uh,
together, but we're
it's
here.
just, we done it. We done some stuff. And I can't believe, would you have thought, I mean, just thinking back, going backwards, that we started this show December of 21, and we have made it through Worlds of
Yeah.
2022. How wild is that?
Yep. Already.
Ah, man, it feels like a dream. But anyways, again, welcome to the show. This is the Tennessee Twos Disc Golf Podcast. This is brought to you by Lone Star Disc. For those of you guys who have not heard about Lone Star yet, you really got to hop on it. Um, Not a whole lot really to talk about, but I got to go through at least a couple of things with you guys. Okay, number one, they are a family-owned and operated business out of Texas. Conroe specifically, they pride themselves on being the only disc golf manufacturer that basically make all of their own stuff in-house. They do not source it from other companies. They do not source plastic from other companies. They don't send it off to be designed. They don't send it off to be anything. They literally do it from the plastic to the molds to the stamps. Everything is in house. I mean, if we're being honest, I think the only thing that really gets designed from the outside in are some of the art for the stamps specifically.
Right.
And even
Creator
most of that
series.
still comes from the inside. So they really do an awesome job. They've been so supportive of what we're doing over here. Um, you know, you guys have seen Josh on the show at least a couple of times. If you have not, we highly recommend you go backwards and check out those episodes specifically. They're two of the best episodes that we have had so far. Ethan's got a disc over there on his side. That is a Glow Armadillo.
Yes.
We know some people have been asking, well, how glow is the glow? Well,
Right.
here you go.
Um
He's going to show you.
Yeah, so for the audio listeners that are on Spotify, you can actually click down at the bottom, and there will be a video. You can see this. For the ones that are on any other podcast platform, I suggest moving over to Facebook and coming and checking it out. But yeah, I had some people reach out and say, so I'm hearing around the block that Lone Star is the go-to for glow plastic, and with glow season coming up, everybody's looking to fill some bags. Um, so without further ado, have a glow armadillo. I have several glow discs in my bag. Hopefully, with the computer screens, you'll be able to see this when I turn the lights out. But yeah, I'll just let it do the talking. It is so glow.
That's wild, dude.
It is
I
ridiculous.
mean, it's practically the first night I ever had a glow disc in my room was when they had sent us those discs for the Lone Star Challenge that we did, and it was in the back of my wife's car for half the day because she drove it all the way from Nashville here, and
I had literally
it
just pulled these out of
yeah.
my truck that's been in the dark.
Yeah, and I swear that disc was like a nightlight in the room the entire night. That's how much glow there was. Wow. Could you imagine if you could stick a UV light on that for just a second?
Just a second. Just a second is all it would need.
Yeah,
I
really.
mean, that is literally with it being in the pitch black. It's just wow.
I don't I don't like to sit there and say, their molds are the best on the market. Everybody has preferences when it comes to molds. Everybody has preferences when it comes to plastic. You might not be a big fan of their plastic. I love a lot of their plastic. Um, but I do have to say I will show favoritism to their glow.
Yeah,
because it is the brightest on the market currently. And it's
absolutely.
really not even close, in my opinion. It is the brightest glow that I have seen on the market so far. So if you're really looking for something that you want and you want it to be the best glow on the market and you want to learn some new discs, check out Lone Star.
Absolutely. And thank you for supporting this show. All right, so moving on. Um, hopefully, that answered some questions, for some of you guys and girls. Um, definitely check it out. So, what do you, what immediate impact? Okay. What was your thoughts of World's final round on Saturday?
Um, it's a mixed bag of emotions for me. FPO,
Yeah, let's start off.
the first.
Let's hear the day.
Well, it's just I'm gonna go through and to kind of throw out some things. FPO, dominance.
Yes.
Uh, MPO, exciting. The courses, underwhelming. Um, I thought that it was truly interesting to watch how this course that we all, you know, maybe not all of us, not me particularly. In fact, I defended the course in this scenario, but a lot of people really battered these courses in DDO because they weren't fun to watch because oh, it was just another OB throw, just another OB throw, just another OB throw. And it's interesting to see how, in a different environment, in other words, late summer Kansas, where the wind was fairly mild up until the last 2 days, where we started to see slightly more than mild, and I do mean slightly more than mild conditions. And yeah, they were wrecking these courses in a
Yeah.
way that, I mean, I personally found a little bit unexpected. I really expected there to be at least one day where the wind started breaching 15 miles an hour, and it just never happened.
No, it really didn't. It was a little bit of a shocker to me as well. I mean, we both kind of expected uh, there to be somewhat of a storm roll in, something kind of unexpected happened, and it just
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, for anybody who missed it, there was a lot of wind leading up to the event. There was a couple of days where they were experiencing 15, 20 mile an hour winds throughout the day. And as the tournament grew closer, a big high pressure system that is severely affecting the West for anybody who hasn't seen yet started kind of moving its way into that region, and basically created a little veil of protection. Kept all the storms away, kept the wind away, kept the temperatures moderately under control. They kind of got a little bit hotter every day throughout the week. Uh, and yeah, it was really interesting to me. I was not prepared to see that out there. I thought it was interesting that we talked about a lot of these holes that needed changes. Um, and a lot of changes were made. Very well done. Specifically, pace of play on the courses got much better.
Much better.
Specifically, I think on Jones Supreme, between holes 8 and 14, I know that there was some renumbering in there. I think it might have been 9, 10, 11, and 12 that had the renumbering. And that fixed the pace of play instantly. There were almost no backups for both sides that
No,
we really saw.
it was definitely a better flow than the European Open. Um,
And the European Open like wasn't terrible
it wasn't.
overall. There's two holes that have
Yep.
crossing fairways that caused backups. And for the most part, it wasn't like there was a little bit of like, oh, we want to protect the players, so but most of it seemed to be more like courtesy based. Like we're waiting
Yeah.
here because we don't want to disrupt the other players, and that did trickle its way down throughout the course through the rest of the round.
Right.
Whereas we there were a fair amount of crossing fairways on this course, and they did a good job kind of just cleaning all of that up.
I agree.
They did go through, make a couple of the hardest holes, revise them, and they ended up being some of the easier holes on the weekend. Now, I think that there's a lot to be said on a couple of those holes for how hard they would have been if the wind played the same. I think even with the changes, they still would have played in the upper echelon of difficulty versus moving up to the easiest, of the course. Um, so there's a lot to be said for that, but still very similar concepts, very skinny fairways, very skinny landing zones for the par threes, especially if they were short. You
Yeah,
really had to put it there, or you were gonna leave yourself short with 50-foot putt for birdie.
with OB in the back.
Yeah, if you were anywhere near the edge of circle, you were flirting with OB deep, right, left. The only safe
Right.
spots for a lot of them are short. Um, so it's kind of like hindsight's 2020, but in the conditions that we saw, it almost ended up being underwhelming of a course
Yeah.
design, which is really interesting. I never expected that I would have to say that.
No, I didn't either. I really did not either.
Um,
Um,
I, I I would argue that without the wind, scoring separation on those courses were difficult to come by.
yeah. Yeah, we've
So
seen a lot of groupings. Um, really throughout the whole entire weekend.
yeah, um, but I think that's from the outside looking in, without getting too deep into what actually happened through the weekend. That's kind of my quick review. What would you say is your quick review?
Yeah. So as far as FPO goes, I can't come up with another word better than what you did, and that's dominance. Um, I truly think that it was Kristen's to lose from the start. Um, and she didn't disappoint. So I
Yeah,
I enjoyed watching the FPO coverage. I enjoyed watching her slay that course. Um, as far as MPO goes, um, I was anxiety ridden the entire final round because I am not a Paul Macbeth hater by no means, but I am one of those people, and I've noted this on Twitter um, several weeks ago that I just like to pull for the underdog no matter who it is. And I I was like every time it would go back and forth and back and forth, and I was like it was like I was playing. So
yeah,
it made it a little bit more interesting for me watching it all play out. Am I disappointed with how it played out? No, because I had a great time watching um
yeah,
throughout the
true.
entire final round. So I I think Worlds was a success this year.
100%.
I do not think that it was by any means the Worlds of last year, just simply because it's going to be hard to beat that. Um However, without the holy shot, I think that 2022 Worlds ended very well.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Um, we didn't get the holy shot this year, but I'm just gonna say that hole 17 was wild. It
Yeah.
really was. We'll get into it a little bit more, but it's as close as this tournament I think could have gotten to a holy shot without somebody acing 16,
Yeah.
to either put themselves so far in the lead they were untouchable, or to flop strokes. Something that would have been the next closest thing to the holy shot that
Right.
this venue could have done, I
Yes.
think.
I agree.
um
Um
yeah,
Speaking
chat's
of
kind of
yeah.
in here saying worlds should have been in a rotating worlds should be in a rotating venue of like 3 to 4 places where weather is less of a factor, kind of how the Super Bowl is usually in a dome or a warmer climate area. um it's probably not nearly as feasible in this type of event, if you will. You have to think of Worlds being more like the Olympics versus the Super Bowl, because the one thing about the Super Bowl is that there is a little bit of a bidding process, but there's a selection process that kind of goes through. A lot of times the highest bidder won't always win because you might see somebody who might be the highest bidder, but they had it last year and they want to move it anyway. So um, there's an interesting process there. On top of that, the entire playoffs are played in the home fields, and they've gotten a little farther away from maintaining only warm climate situations for the Super Bowl as of late as well. Um, Also, in theory, there is a 1 in 32 chance that somebody's going to have a home field advantage, and that's never going to happen in disc golf as well. Now, what I really do want to see out of Worlds is I want to see Worlds start being its title and see worlds go across the pond, whether it's the eastern pond or the western pond, whatever it is. I really want to start seeing worlds, take that trip overseas.
Right.
Um, you know, uh, as awesome as it is that we have our second ever European winner on the FPO track, um, I think that it's kind of unfair that only the Europeans are required to travel to play Worlds, to that kind of travel.
Right.
Um, and I don't know that it's necessarily something that needs to happen every other year, but I think
I
once
was
every 4 years or
That's
so, it
exactly what I was
should
gonna say,
go.
is, like, once every 4 years. Um, and if you do it every other year, swap it back and forth, like, America, Europe, America, Australia, America,
Yeah.
Europe, America, Japan. Something
Yes.
something like that, kinda go off of popularity in those areas,
Yeah.
and they get more of the, title, but I do think that that is something that should happen. As far as in America, I kind of think that it has to be a rotating venue for Worlds, simply for the fact of it can showcase different players. Um, but to fight myself on that is you look at USDGC, which is not different. They just adjust the course, um, and we usually do see a different winner um, from time to time, especially. But I mean, what is your opinion if Worlds were to say, take Eagles Crossing? All right, we're not. I'm not saying this is happening, but just since everybody knows what Eagles Crossing looks like, um, if
Well,
you put it at
w-
Eagles Crossing and you decide, okay, this is where it will be every other year, and we will have 2 years to change the course. Is that good enough, or does it need to continually rotate?
so two things. Number one, Worlds for me should be played on multiple courses, not a singular course. So that means Eagles Crossing would need a companion course, um, whether that is built on the same
On right,
property or, if that gets taken to, somewhere else in the region. It should be a two-course setup. And part of the reason that I think that two-course setup is important, and one of the reasons why I think this might be the last time we ever see Worlds at a place like Emporia, is that both courses at Emporia favored big throwers.
right,
Whereas, like last year, you had your golf course layout and you had your wooded course layout, and that, number one, created separation for big arms on one course. Excuse me. Created separation for big arm players on one course, and then you had a wooded course, where it's more technical, and you had to be able to perform at least moderately well on either course and very well on one of the two courses. Um, and I think that is what we all kind of want out of Worlds. So, you know, I don't see Eagles Crossing yet being that type of a venue.
right,
Um, and I don't think that Worlds being the title it is should be tied down to any specific location, anyways.
yeah, no,
The title itself implies that it should be a rover, and it's one of the few times you'll hear me say that because for me, I really love the idea of majors being their own place.
right,
Look at some other sports and what we see. Wimbledon. Wimbledon is iconic, just like
yes,
Winthrop Gold is iconic in its own way. right? And that's what makes that great. I really love the decision they made with Champions Cup to go ahead and
Same.
keep it at WR Jackson. Worlds is not the same. Worlds implies that it needs to move. Um, and I hope to see that we actually get more movement instead of less movement.
Yeah.
In terms of weather, it's 6 to 1, half dozen the other. For example, I mean, USDGC, we've had some really beautiful years, and we've had years that they've had to cut short for hurricanes. We've had years that they've had 2 days of clarity and 2 days of rain. In
Yeah.
fact, that's actually most years. Um, Weather is what it is, and if you want to be the best in the world and play as the best in the world
You
for
have to
five
face the
straight
elements.
rounds, you got to face the elements.
Yep. I agree. I do agree. Um, so yeah, let's go ahead and get into some stat lines.
Yeah, you
What
want
do
to
you?
start with FPO?
Well, yeah, sure. I have chat pulled up, but I can get it real quick.
I mean,
Um.
I can. I just meant, do you want us to start? I've got it pulled up. I
Oh,
can run
then
through it.
yes. Go ahead and start out on FPO.
Someday this guy will get another monitor ready.
Well, I have it.
Or you know what? You know what you need actually? I take it back. Instead of getting another monitor, what he just needs is a tablet on a stand that he can dedicate for stuff like this.
I have two of those. I should do that.
Yeah. You just get yourself a little stand, find a good spot for it on your
Yeah,
desk.
have
There
an
you go.
extra arm.
See?
I should do
See? All
that.
right. All right. Thoughts. That might be coming soon to a stream near you.
Yep.
You know.
Maybe I could have it do my stream deck as well.
Fancy. Okay. FPO went down a little bit like this. Chris and Tatar is your 2022 world champion, going 38 down over the course of 5 days. Followed moderately closely up until, a little bit of a blow up. Um, was, Hannah Blumers, 30 down. Very respectable for the course of 5 days on those courses.
Absolutely.
Um, Taken down the last podium finish was Holland Handley, also very respectable, 25 down. Sneaking upwards into fourth place, Missy Gannon, 24 down. Paige Pierce had a little bit of a storm back, and she got herself into tied for fifth with Evelina Solon, and both of them at 22 down. On Scoggins, a lot of grit she showed this weekend, especially with her groin injury and everything that she had to go out there. I can't believe she played all 5 days, to be
I am
completely
surprised as
honest.
well.
Forget making the cut with the injury to begin with. The fact that she was able to play all 5 days, she was hauling up into seventh place with a 21 down. Eighth place, Cat Merch at 17. Tied for ninth, you had Haley King and Valerie Mandajano at 16 down. That rounds out your top 10. Notable names to miss the top 10: Katrina Allen, Jennifer Allen, Ella Hansen, Emily Beach had a little bit of a storm back on the final day as well. Macy Vela had a admirable showing on a few days. Really struggled towards the end of the final day, unfortunately. Few other notable names, but that's your gist of it. Um, let's talk about Evelina and Paige to
Okay.
start with.
All right. So, um, basically, as we had done the previous two shows ago, we said that Paige would either win this or be outside the top 10. Um, and our previous show, we said that that is still in contention. She was at eighth place going into the final round, and we didn't know what to expect. We knew that she wasn't in
Yes.
contention to win. We thought there might have been a contention to get to the podium or to fall on her face and fall off of the top 10.
Yes.
She didn't. She played well. She played a good final round. She was there to support everybody else, um, as she always is, because that's just who Paige is. Um,
Yeah.
and she got herself in the top five, and there is absolutely no shame in that. Um, Evelina left a little bit to be desired, as she has done to us a lot this year.
Yes.
She throws the disc amazing, absolutely
Argu-
amazingly,
Arguably the best thrower of the disc in the FPO division.
and I wouldn't argue it. I wouldn't argue it with you. If somebody told me that, I mean, there's a couple that I would say, okay, well, they would compete, but there's plenty
Yeah.
of them up there at the top that would compete. But just raw talent, throwing the disc with distance and accuracy, she's there. The problem is her putting is hit or miss. It is literally 50-50. And one day she'll hit and she'll go 8-9 down. And then one day she's not hitting and she'll score even. And it's
Yeah.
crazy to think that on a pro level course that she can still shoot even by missing every putt. That just goes to show how well she throws the disc. Truly.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Honestly, I I was worried there because I thought it would have been almost asinine to consider the idea that we would have an all European podium
And it was
at
close.
Worlds. And there was an opportunity. You're talking that Evelina basically had a chance to take that from Holland Hanley. Um, and we'll forget Missy Gannon for a second, that she had a very good final round to move herself up into fourth. But Holland had a a little more than slightly better final round
Yes.
at four down. I mean, when you're talking that the winner shot 10 down and the runner up shot a seven down, and that was with a couple of very large mistakes and some spotty putting on some of the other holes. Um, third place was well within her realm, and I think if we were to look at her stat line, I'm going to look at it right now. Um, I think I see one, two, three, four strokes just at the naked eye
Yeah.
that she left on the course. So if you're looking at it on the putting green specifically, the four strokes that she left on the course, that puts her in third place if
Right.
she nails those circle one putts. Um, and then, I mean, not to mention nerves get to everybody different, and we know that Evelina is no stranger to struggling with nerves out on the course. She took four OBs that final day, so that was definitely some nerves in her throwing as well.
Yes.
Um, so that's four more strokes that she left out there. In theory, if you really want to break it down, she had a chance to tie for second with a clean round on the final day.
Oh, yeah.
And she left a little too much out on the course, and it's unfortunate because it seems like we've said that every single tournament this year
Yeah.
that we've talked about her, is she just left a little too much out on the course. um and she's got two options here. She needs to adjust her putt and learn how to putt a different way that is more consistent, or she needs to be willing to change the effort she puts into her putting. She's been very candid on multiple moments, I think, that she's talked about, I don't putt a lot. I don't putt practice. When's your putting practice? Well, I putt during my rounds. When I putt my practice rounds, that's my practice putting. For an extreme hyzer putter like she is, I think she's really got to consider either switching from a hyzer putt to something flatter that's going to hold straight and give her some more confidence, or she needs to put the effort in like somebody like Garrett Gerthy. When
Yeah.
Garrett Gerthy goes out there and he wins, the first thing he'll tell you is that I putt a lot
Hours
this
and
week.
hours and hours.
I
Right.
putt a lot this week. And if you're going to be a hyzer putter, you've got to be willing to do that extra work,
Hmm.
because it is the hardest putting form to get consistent, in my opinion.
I agree. I do agree as well.
Now
Um,
on the flip side of that 22 down, you had Paige, who, if you guys did watch or listen to episode 35, um, there was that real chance where I had said she's either going to win or she's missing the top 10. that was very, very much so, like you said, in play
Yeah.
going into day five. Um, First of all, kudos to her for keeping herself together long enough to not fall out of the top 10. A very respectable seven down that final round. A couple of mistakes, nothing particularly unexpected. She had an OB on hole one, managed to salvage par on one, and took an OB on eight, took
Mhm.
a bogey. Um, had a little bit of a rough bogey on 11 as well, just or 10, excuse me, missing the fairway. Um, so overall, very respectable to stay in contention, move up towards the podium. She had a real chance at the podium too if she cleans up a couple of strokes.
Right.
And I said that there might be an opportunity for her to make podium um, last week, and you know, just wasn't enough, but well done overall. Um, Missy Gannon shot herself a six down, mostly clean. The only bogey she took was on 16. No surprise, it's 16. you
Right.
know, it's the most dangerous hole on this course for a reason. Um,
Yeah.
but outside of that, she played very well, very consistent. Holland Handley,
Kudos.
Holland left a lot of strokes that final round. Um, but kudos to her for keeping some composure with Missy Gannon storming up towards her. Um, you know,
I think
her,
Holland was really trying to be more aggressive. She was
yes,
really aiming for that second place, and she had started out the round aggressive. She finished that way as well.
yes,
Um,
absolutely,
so as long as she knew that she could finish out in that third place on podium, I I
yeah,
respect it. Um, but at that was kind of the surprise performance out of the top five. Um,
yeah,
Kind of without a doubt, in my opinion. Holland Hanley is a very good player. We just haven't got to see a whole lot of her this year. Um, However, it won't be the last time that we see her up towards the top. I'll go ahead and say that now.
no.
She's too good.
Do you think Colin Hanley might end up being our Missy Gannon of 2022?
That's kind of what I was thinking. I'm not gonna lie. Um, just that like next year, um, really really take a step forward. Missy came on hot last year at the end, and then this
Yes,
year she's played very solid. Um,
yes.
I kind of see that with Holland. I
No,
definitely do.
we've seen some flashes of greatness and some signs of weakness. So
Yep.
definitely stuff for her to clean up. I kind of hope she cleans up. Now, the other person who has probably been on the track a little bit longer than Missy was when she had her come up last year, um, is Henna Blumbers.
Yes.
Um, and I think Henna is another one that we can talk about in a similar fashion to Evelina, where we just left too many strokes on the course, specifically on the putting green.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in that final day, we had um, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10 strokes in circle one essentially that got left out on the course. So
Right.
she was 55% from circle 1X. And, notwithstanding, the tap ins that she got there, that's a pretty rough number.
Yeah.
Uh, you talk about hole nine, for example. She was basically 20 feet away on hole nine and ended up three putting.
Yeah.
That's rough. And
It is.
she, very similar to what we kind of talk about with Evelina, especially when Evelina's confident and you can see the confidence on her face. You watch those putts go in, it's almost lights out. It's almost like it's going to go in. Henna was kind of the same way. You saw the light leave her eyes every now and again, and that was when it kind of just got a little rough. Um, she might have been putting a little too much pressure on herself, in all honesty,
Yeah, that's possible.
but
S-
it's hard to say.
Regardless, she did very, very well.
Absolutely.
Nothing to be
I
ashamed of there.
You're talking that she was the only player really the whole week that applied any amount of pressure to Kristen
Yes.
when push comes to shove. And that is impressive in and of its own right when you consider that Kristen basically won by 8 strokes to her.
Yeah.
Um, so kudos to Henna. I mean, there is absolutely no shame in taking second place. Um,
Not at all.
really hope that we get a chance to see her clean up some of those strokes and the putting woes. Um, the nice thing for Henna comparatively to Evelina is I think that Henna's got a nice putting form.
Yes.
So she doesn't probably have quite as much to battle as Evelina does in this manner of speaking.
Right.
But she does need to gain some consistency on the green, and if she does that, I don't know how much more she's sticking around the U.S. for the rest of the year. I could probably look, um, but sounds like a conversation we could have another night.
Yeah.
But she's another one you could really consider possibly having a little bit of a Missy Gannon type ending to the year.
Yeah.
She's put on some really solid performances this year, and watch out if you get into a tournament where Kristen's not playing or Paige is not playing, or if both of them are playing and both of them kind of slip up here and there, which both of them are known to do from time to time.
Mhm.
There's a good chance Henna could be the one that's there to take that spot.
Just maybe. Just maybe. Um, so now that leaves us with Kristen Tatar. Um, she's the best player in the world. Um, as far as FPO goes, I know it was a struggle for us not to put her at first a little bit on our power rankings, just simply
Right.
for the fact of the injury. It definitely did not deter her any on the world stage.
Yeah.
And if it did, yikes. um, yeah, because if it does get healthy, it's gonna be dangerous. We're gonna see glimpses of Paige of past. So, um, I I wouldn't be afraid to say that she doesn't at least win one of these playoffs and go into the DGPT finale and do very, very well for herself. Um, this is a
Yeah.
huge momentum boost, and this is something that's been very, very important to her. So we'll get to see, kind of how she reacts, as winning a major because with
Right.
Paige, sometimes we have that little bit of a hangover or, a little hiatus that happens, and then she gets back to her winning ways. So
Right.
we'll kind of see how this affects Kristen.
Um, yeah. So for me, it's almost amazing when you talk about somebody who is 30 years old and has a kid. Um, but there's almost like this year's been a weird, like late blooming coming of age in terms of her disc golf.
Hmm.
Um, and it's been really wild to watch because as much as I hate to say it, I agree. She is the best in the world, and I cannot, in good conscience, officially put her at the top of our power rankings, which we're not going to officially change today, anyways, because of the injury. And I only say that because when you talk about stuff like this, if you look at like Cy Youngs or Players of the Years, MVPs, all of these awards that we talk about in these major sports, if you miss as much time as she has, you really have to do something special and continue to do so. Well, she has done that.
Right.
She's still probably missing a couple of stats to be the official player of the year, but she is on her way to it right now. And I'm
Hmm.
not sure that there's going to be anything that can stop this freight train at this point.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. All we can do is try to hop on the caboose and watch.
That's it. That's
Hmm.
that's really really all we can do right now. Um, you know, and at the very least, I'm comfortable saying that since we don't have to do an official power rankings this week, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Right now, she's tied for number 1 at the very
Yeah,
least.
at the least.
At the very least. and we have um, before we get into our next power rankings, I believe uh, we will have GMC.
Yes.
So depending on how everybody places at GMC, it might be exactly what she needs to undisputably be number one in the power rankings.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep. I agree.
Now, for anybody who might not be paying attention, if you want to know her dominance index on the UDisc world rankings right now, it is an outrageous number. Now, I want to remind you that world rankings on UDisc are only able to apply physical stats that are seen in their situations. They 0% have any account for events that you miss.
Right.
Okay. So they literally do not take that into account. But her dominance index is 118 versus Paige's second place at 52.
Yeah. It's
For
over doubles.
comparison, For comparison, 1, 2, and 3 in MPO is Ricky at 59, Eagle at 58, and Paul at 53. Now, Eagle at 58, I really don't agree with. Again, these calculations do not apply time missed. However, Kristen at 118, even with the time she missed, still agree with it.
Yeah.
And if you think I'm wrong, she is not placed worse than third in any Elite Series or major that she has played this year. And dominance index is directly calculated based on how likely you are to beat every player on the list.
Yep.
In other words, she is already doing that 99% of the
Tenfold.
time.
Right.
So I don't care how much time she's missed, that dominance index is correct.
Yeah.
Eagles, not so much. I think Eagles is still off.
Yeah.
um,
Well, we'll
but
see, but
but
I agree for right now.
you know, it, there's no question. You know, she's the best FPO player in the world right now.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. At least the most dominant. Um, all right. Well, congratulations to Kristen Tatar, and let's hop on over into some MPO.
The MPO. The MPO went down a little bit like this.
Um,
Paul Macbeth.
yeah. Go ahead.
Paul
Go ahead.
Macbeth takes down the victory, um, officially tying with Aaron Gossage in regulation at 46 down. Aaron Gossage takes her second place. We'll get to the playoff and everything that happened later, but also with that 46 down, Tristan Tanner and Chris Clemons and Matty O all tied for third place. Remember, we talked about there was a little bit of struggles in terms of scoring separation because
Mm-hmm.
of the good weather conditions we saw on those courses. So congratulations to all of them taking that at a 42 down. All of them were very close to contention for second place or a win up until literally the very end. So honestly, very impressive, especially when you consider two of them were doing that from the chase card.
Yes.
Um, so really kudos to them. Calvin Heimberg bringing up the rear of that here, 38 down for sixth place. Joel Freeman, Anthony Barella at tied for seventh with a 37 down. Ben Calloway and Nate Sexton sneaking into the top 10 there, both of them with 35 down. Um, let's start with Ben Calloway and Nate Sexton
Yeah. I mean,
a little bit.
Nate Sexton is one of those players that is just extremely consistent. And even though he may not throw the farthest, he has admirable distance, great putting, and has very, very high IQ when it comes to positioning. So,
Yeah.
with that put in place, you can pretty much bank on him placing well in any kind of major event.
Yeah. And to put that into perspective, um, something Nate Sexton is pretty famous for really not doing that often is going out of bounds.
Yeah.
And he took four OBs that final day, took a double bogey and two bogeys throughout the day. Lost himself four strokes just on these OBs. and a little bit out on the putting on a couple of those. That double OB hole was, unfortunately exacerbated slightly
Yeah, I
by
remember
two
when that
putt.
knocked him out of the top 10, I was talking to you, I was like, um, "So, he just dropped from 7th out of the top 10. I don't know what happened, he must have took a double." And that's exactly what happened.
But I have to say, very impressive considering that that's what he did on the final day to still have played well enough
To
throughout all
to
5 days
scratch his way
combined
back into the top 10.
to still finish in the top 10.
Right,
Very impressive, especially when he was one of the ones who were a little more outspoken at the beginning of the week that this is an event that is going to be won by big arms. You take those 4 to 5 strokes. We'll give him 5 strokes for the four OBs and the two putt after the double OB on 8 because he was clearly rattled by that point in time.
right,
So that's 5 strokes right there. That puts him at 40 down. That puts him in contention with the big boys at Worlds.
yeah,
That's impressive,
it is impressive.
especially for somebody who does not really tour. I
Right,
mean, you're talking he's settled down. He's reaching the big
he's
events only part of his
right,
career.
he's found his niche, doing some Jomez, doing some commentary, he's found his place, he knows what he wants to do, he knows the events that he needs to hit, um,
Yep.
and he he's not dumb. You know what I mean? Like, he is playing his cards absolutely in the right way. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
kudos to
Um,
Nate.
kudos to Ben as well. Unfortunately, I got to be honest, we didn't get a chance to see a lot of Ben play until the final day.
Yeah,
Round 5 was really the only time we got a chance to see some of the stuff he was doing on coverage, and that was only because he had to claw his way into being someone that they showed on coverage.
right,
Um, so I don't want to discount his play out there because the fact that he played well enough to get himself on coverage like that is
right.
impressive.
It is,
So,
absolutely.
I wish I could talk a little bit more about how well he played. We just didn't see it. So all I can do is go back and look at UDisc, and that doesn't make for an exciting story. Um, Anthony Barella and Joel Freeman. Joel Freeman was another one we didn't get to see a whole lot. I'm gonna kind of put him in there with Ben Calloway. He had a fantastic final round, shot 9 down, bogey free. If I remember correct, he went OB free the final day as well.
That's good.
Really good play out there for him. 100% C1X as well, and 44% from Circle Two, which is no slouch of a putt right
Not at
there.
all. Yeah,
Um,
I'd take that any day.
and 90% fairway hits. The only thing I would say if I had to call out one thing he left a little to be desired on was his circle one hits.
Right,
He increases his circle one hits. In my opinion, he probably takes um, a 12, maybe even a 13 down and gets over that 40 mark.
yeah.
So kudos to him. Anthony Barella really did a great job keeping himself in contention.
At
The
one
biggest
point,
thing
he was
is,
tied for 2nd and only
yeah,
1 stroke behind the lead at one
yeah.
point.
Um, Unfortunately, took that double bogey on 18, which kind of took him out of that conversation
Mhm.
a little bit. That was unfortunate, but he did some outrageous things
He
out
did.
there. The one thing I really would like to see out of Anthony Barella going forward is a change in attitude, um, because talent wise, this might be a hot take, a little bit of a bold move. He might be the most talented player in disc golf right now. If you paired his talent level with the positive outlook that Aaron Gossage had throughout the entire weekend, we might be talking about a different person who won.
Yeah.
Because there were times out there where you saw him lose it a little bit. And it wasn't necessarily like he was out there throwing fits or being a child but you saw his demeanor switch like a
Yes.
light switch instantly from I'm playing really well, I'm in a great mood, gosh, I'm doing some awesome things right now to you're such an idiot, man. And then he would carry that for 3 or 4 holes in a
Right.
row before he would flip that switch again. And I think if you saw him kind of go out there and flip that switch back It's okay to be upset. You can have your frustration out there. I missed that putt. That was nasty. I should not have missed that putt. That was completely ridiculous. So disappointing. He needs to, flip that switch on of that and flip it back to you've got this, man, before the next tee. He
Right.
cannot carry that multiple holes in a row like he did. And we saw him do it on two or three different occasions throughout the week. It wasn't just, I'm not talking one instance. I mean,
Right.
on
No, yeah, you're
coverage, we
right.
saw him flip that negativity switch two or three different times and carry it from multiple holes in a row.
And the thing about it is we're not talking about it in a bad term, as in like it was affecting his card mates. It wasn't. This was a total inner demon that he was fighting. Like this was
Yes.
himself. He was beating himself up. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't screaming. He wasn't causing a scene. You could just tell. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like you could just tell that he was extremely frustrated um, with himself. His face would be red, but he held his composure enough to not bother the card, which is a great stepping stone. Um, Now, if he can start flipping that switch earlier, like what Daniel said, watch out.
Yeah. It's. I think for Anthony Barella, if you guys didn't see, I mean, hole one.
That was ridiculous. 635 feet, I think is what they said.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm gonna
yeah.
600 feet. 600 feet, and honestly, you're talking 600 feet. It never got to full turn.
It flattened out, went over the tree, and then hyzered.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. It was far. Um, they
It was
said I
far.
noticed in the commentary they said that in the distance competition he only got one to 550 because he never could get the right angle on the disc, and then he come out on hole one and it just smashed on that Halo boss. So,
No.
and you know what's so funny is right before he threw, I was like, Halo boss, and you was like, yeah, he's been smashing that thing all weekend, and then boom, 635 feet. It's like, okay, I get note taken. I understand.
I
Didn't
know.
have
I
to
know why
prove
he's
it.
throwing a Halo ball.
Did not
My
have
f-
to do that. I'm sorry.
my favorite moment watching that 100% was just watching Ricky Wysocki kind of like
I gotta follow that.
he had like this smirk on his face that he was in true disbelief,
Yeah.
and then it switched from I I have to throw after this, like can I just like jump putt it off and throw again afterwards,
Yeah.
cuz wow.
Yeah. It was an incredible throw.
Oh my gosh, man. I mean, there's been talks for a long time, all this year, all over Twitter and this, that, and the other. People talk, who's the longest thrower on tour? Who's the longer throws on tour? And most people are going to say the same thing. Well, David Wiggins is on tour this year. He's been at quite a few events, so he's the longest thrower on tour. And you've got quite a few players who have just kind of come back and said, "Shut up, you're wrong, AB." And everybody's like, "Really? You think AB?" It's AB, and we saw it.
Right. I, it's hard to say. Um, but he's definitely one of the top five for sure. Um, it's hard to say because Eagle is still there too. I mean, he throws so far. I mean, just last
Yes,
last year, I mean, he parked a 728-foot hole. So it's
but think about the line that he threw that on, and the stability of the disc. A Halo Boss is already one of the most overstable discs in that entire lineup. And then you add the Halo stability, which we all know makes everything even more overstable. And he's throwing that on a 25-degree hyzer angle and flipping it up to flat and then getting it to carry 600 feet. Could you imagine what that Halo boss would do on a distance line? Because that 700-foot hole he parked, first of all, was at elevation. Discs, I don't care what anybody says. People say discs drop like a rock at elevation. Yes, that is true. but there is so little air resistance that discs hustle. They move so much faster. You throw something at 35 miles an hour, it acts like it's 85 miles an hour.
Right.
There's no air resistance. You throw that on a distance line like he did, yes, I 100% believe that. You're talking 630 feet, all hyzer, all hyzer. Could you imagine if he threw that on a distance line? How far that goes? Big Simon or Eagle Annie Flex.
I don't know, but I'd like to see it.
I want to say
I'd like to see it.
Anthony Anthony Barella. I know you are not watching this, and I know you probably never will. But if you ever watch this, please, for the love of God, your YouTube channel deserves it at the very least.
I like his YouTube channel. I've been watching it lately. Um,
Yeah,
it's not bad. Not bad. All right. So now, moving up a spot, um, sixth place, Calvin Hamburg. Um, I know we didn't talk much about Joel, but we just didn't see him. Um,
we can't talk about what we didn't see.
yeah.
Unfortunately,
Um,
I'm sorry.
Calvin, we
Congrats
did
to
see.
Joel. Great performance
Yes, Calvin, we did see, and
for a fair amount of the weekend too.
he was a little. The final round was kind of a disappointment. He really tried to stay in it, and it just wasn't working with it. He had a few trickles that went OB, few low putts. It just wasn't his day. It
Yeah,
it truly wasn't.
his tee work day 5 was the most disappointing I think we saw all weekend.
It did just
Um,
a lot of things just trickled to places they didn't need to be.
right now, if we want to talk about the difference that we saw between, you know, like Paul and Aaron versus what we saw out of Calvin Heimberg, is let's use day 4 as an example. Calvin probably underformed performed a little on day 4 as well out on the country club, but he showed signs of pure greatness on day
Right.
4. There were some park jobs that he hit on day 4 that, made you go, wow,
Wow.
that, wow. Um, the unfortunate thing is on day 5, I really truly expected to see him better his day 4 performance, and day 5 just felt like a lot of, release the disc and, oh god, where is that going?
Right.
A lot.
Yeah, that happened a lot. I
That
agree.
really happened. I mean, there multiple times on the 5th round where you just heard audibly say, "Oh my god, really?" You know?
Yeah. He was just
Eh,
disappointed. Um,
underwhelming final day.
yep.
Um, because
Uh,
when push comes to shove, in all actuality, at, 38 down with a 4 down, if he had taken everything he did right from day 4 and improved upon that, he's in contention for that playoff.
oh
Not
yeah,
just podium. He's in contention for
for the
that
win.
playoff.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, but there has to be a winner and there has to be a loser, and it like I said, it just wasn't his day.
Yeah.
Um, so in fifth place,
No, tied for third.
okay, that was about
Third, fourth, and fifth are all tied
third,
for
fourth,
third.
and fifth. All right. So you have Tristan Tanner, um,
Chris Clemons,
Chris Clemens, and
Matteo.
Matty O. And we'll start off with Chris Clemens. Um, Chris Clemens has sneakily been very good this year. Um, he's had a lot of top 10 finishes. Um, he has always been known as one of the best sidearm players, but as of late, his backhand is looking nice. Um,
Right.
I know you even said it on day 5. You're like, man, he's really, really worked on this. He's worked on
Yeah.
his backhand a
We've
lot, and it's very
we've
noticeable.
talked we've talked about it a couple of times on the
Mhm.
show this year that his backhand, because the thing is not just that he's worked on his backhand and that it's good. Um, Chris has even, he's admitted in previous years, like, I could throw a backhand here, but I think I just trust my forehand more on this
Right.
shot. And the amount of times this year that he would have normally thrown a forehand, that he has switched to throwing a backhand and throwing it confidently,
Yes.
it's his own confidence in his backhand this year that has felt more surprising than anything. Um, and for the most part, he's executed very well, which
I
is
think so too. And his putt
very.
is very good too.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that he's throwing these backhands even more often, bodes well for him because he's got such a good forehand that if his backhand really is elevated to the level that his forehand is, then he is going to be a force to be reckoned with because you know, um Emporia, well, as a whole, Jones and the Country Club play very friendly to left-handers.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say he didn't leave some strokes on the field. He definitely left some, just like everybody else did somewhere. He left a couple too many to really be in contention for a win. But he took advantage of the fact that there are a lot of friendly holes for lefties out there,
Yes. He did.
which is
And
that's
that's
something that
that's
we
that's
we
what you
haven't
gotta
always
do.
said. But, he's been so good at forehanding for his entire career. That's something that we didn't always think about him was you'd think, oh, this is a lefty friendly course, and it might not play into Chris's favor because he's such a better forehander than he is a
Yeah.
backhander.
Exactly.
And this year we haven't had to say that.
Yep. I agree. Um, so shout out to Chris for being the presenting DD sponsor uh, that that showed up the most. Um,
Yeah.
it's kind of wild to say, but congratulations on that. Um, and then we'll move on into Tristan Tanner. Um, Tristan had some of the best stat lines. I noticed I seen where Statmando had posted some stuff, and Tristan had retweeted and posted on Instagram and stuff
Hmm.
of like strokes gained on tee and on green, and he was
Yes.
number one and number one. Um, he played phenomenally. Um, Truly one of the best performances we've seen Tristan play, if not the best. Um, he is such a crusher of the disc. It was overshadowed just a little bit last day because of Aaron. Um, but he throws the disc very far. Um, and he's a great
I think
putter as well.
it's worth noting too that when you started talking about holes 10, 11, and 12, there was a thought process for at least a minute where Tristan got himself up there tied for second place.
Yes.
And you
Kind of the
thought,
same thing
wow,
with
how
AB.
how far can Tristan really take this?
Yep.
AB got him again, like we talked about, he got himself in the same position. He went bogey bogey though,
Yep.
right after his sixth straight that he had on the front nine. And Tristan never did that.
Nope.
He always had a little bit of an opportunity, and it was kind of always a little bit more in his hands than it was for AB after
Yes.
after that stretch. He just wasn't able to get quite enough birdies down there on the stretch, but nine down, one OB the entire day, no bogeys.
It was such a great round. Um,
And let's not forget that sorry that I'm going to channel my inner Nate Doss here, but he did this from B pool to start.
yeah.
He had to go out there and put rounds together against, no offense, subpar players, and had no idea just how close he would be when he got into the scramble and got spit back out up at the top. He had to go out there against players who were not coming anywhere near those numbers and still continue to fight. There's the part of the reason that playing from B pool can be so difficult is there's a complacency. A lot of times, even for the best players in the world, sometimes the focus is,
I'm winning my
just keep
card.
Yeah, keep win my card, keep the box for most of the rounds, and I'll be in good position. That is not the case for B pool.
No.
When you're in Worlds and you're in B pool, if you are going to make a showing at Worlds, you need to be that much better than the card. You can't just beat the card. You've got to show the card they didn't belong in the tournament. That's
I
how
mean,
good
that's
you have
true
to
though.
play.
That is true. Um,
You know,
and he did that. Like he
it.
came out swinging, and he was a force to be reckoned with. To
Yeah.
be honest, he was there.
I can't tell you how many times, like, just this year, that I've gone out to a tournament of my own and I felt that I had a really solid tournament because I'd have, one of my rounds where I kept the box for 14 of 18 holes. And of those four that I didn't have the box, they weren't necessarily bad holes either. It's not like I quadruple bogeyed or anything. It might have just been a par where somebody else birdied. And then I would get to the end of the tournament and I would be in eighth place.
Yeah.
It's so hard to desire that extra stroke when you're already beating your card by that much.
Yep.
And he did that.
Absolutely. So yeah, huge shout
Yeah.
out to Tristan Tanner for putting on a epic performance.
Yeah.
Speaking of epic performances, how about we talk about Matty O a little bit?
Matty O. Um, in terms of attitude on the course, maybe one of the most colorful players, eh, possibly of all time. And so much fun to see him on the lead card.
Yes.
Especially when you compare having Matty O and Paul Macbeth on the same cards,
Yeah.
because you've got, you know, Dr. Joker against Mr. Serious.
Yeah. You're right
It's
though.
like literally having the Joker and Batman on a card. You know? Like, and I'm not saying that they're enemies by any stretch of the means, but they are, in terms of attitude on the course, almost the antithesis of each other.
Yeah.
And it's really fun to watch. Even with Paul Macbeth isn't there, Matteo is always fun to watch. But watching them together on the same card is just, there's something about it.
It was nice. Um,
There's something about
it
it.
was nice. Uh, Matty O is, I don't know his age. I know he's got to be pushing 40. Um, I don't know if he's there yet or not, but this dude is good. Matty O is so good, and he's been so good for so long.
Yeah,
And it's just one of those things where I don't know if he could do. I don't know how much better he could have done. Um, in all honesty, like he's one of those players that is just there. You know what I mean? He's right there in the cream of the crop, but he's not necessarily in the winner circle most of the time. But you always have to commend him for his play because it's always so
right.
good.
Yeah, you know, Matteo has been pro a long time.
Mhm.
You're talking he went pro what, back in like 2005,
Right.
2003, somewhere way back.
Actually,
Um,
no, that's right. It was 2003 and Nate it was the year Nate Doss won and Matty O came second. He was 16 years old.
yeah,
So that was 19 years ago, 16 plus 19, so he's 35. He's actually not
yeah,
as old as I thought.
yeah. No, well, yeah, 35, 36, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Um, it's kind of funny, like, and Matteo, he's won some big events. Um, I'm trying to think of like another name that I could really akin him to, like in another sport,
Um,
because he's always just a little bit off the best of that generation. And he's been doing it for three generations now, basically, of disc golfers. You're
he
talking he did it for the DOS, the late Kennys, the DOS eras, the
right.
Macbeth era, the Wysocki era.
He was kinda he
It's,
was kinda like the Matthew
it's
Stafford before this past year, you know?
yeah,
Like, just
I
always
it,
a great player. Everybody
his
knows
like
him, but it's It's like he
He's like
doesn't really get the
The
wins.
Mickelson to Tiger, or um, I can't even think of another one. Trying to think of a good baseball one. He was yeah, he's kind of like the Alex Rodriguez to Barry Bonds. You know, he was right there, but it just wasn't quite Bonds, you
Mhm.
know. And unfortunately, that's just been his entire career.
Right.
Um, but you know, I can't help but wondering too, like just how much different this season would have been if that absolute freak accident didn't kick off his season.
Yeah.
That's just so heartbreaking because he
Yeah.
looks so good this year, and he's playing on lost time.
Mhm.
He is behind. He's you're talking about a player who's played half the events, and not by half the events that most everybody else has, and not by choice.
Right.
You know, but beautiful performance.
Absolutely.
I enjoyed every second that I watched him play this weekend.
Me too.
Truly.
Alright.
Now, interestingly enough, before we get away from this tied for third, did you notice that in third place, tied for third, you had each branch of Trilogy
I noticed
at
that.
the dynamic disc courses?
Yeah, in Emporia, you had
At
Latitude
the
64, West Side Discs, and Dynamic Discs. That was
all tied for third.
yeah,
Trilogy
the
on three.
trilogy in Trilogy. That was
That
that's something to note. That is impressive.
just in case
Um,
anyone was wondering.
yeah, and then, first and second, you had Discraft. So, um, I do think that that's very cool. That is something that'll probably never happen again.
No, absolutely
That
not.
would be incredibly difficult to have happen again. It's kinda poetic.
Yeah, I really was. Um, well, uh,
It's that time.
six time does six time things,
Yeah.
and I Aaron Gossage, man, what a performance! I don't care what anybody says. The Twitter world went wild with Paul Macbeth didn't win that, Aaron lost it. No,
No.
that's not how this works.
Right.
Aaron Gossage went out there and put on an absolute show. You think that he gave it away to Paul Macbeth? If he gave it away to Paul Macbeth, what the heck happened on 18?
Right.
Come on. That was I mean, outside of going in, that was his shot of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, that was wild. I can't to put in perspective comparatively to you who were more like I always root for the underdog. I don't really have dogs in the fight. I just, I want to see the underdog. I
Right.
was pulling for I wanted Paul to get six times.
Right.
When he became the, essential favorite or leader after a couple of rounds, I was really like, okay, I think Paul's going to do this. I was rooting for him and found myself anxiety ridden over hoping that Aaron Gossage played well and that he gave himself a chance to win against all odds that final day.
Right. I mean, I was right there
Like
with you.
I
We were both like that. It it just it's one of those things where you hate to see somebody that's not been in that limelight yet, uh, not get their chance, so to speak. Um,
yeah,
but because who knows? He may never be on that stage again. But I think he will, right? It's just one of those unknown factors, because the MPO field is absolutely the farthest thing from a gimme.
yeah,
It's crazy how competitive this MPO field is. In the top 30, it's anybody's game.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Um
well, he was 38th, so
it's
maybe top 40. I don't know.
it's hard to say looking forward, what Aaron Gossage's career could possibly look like. But, if I had to think about it, in terms of his career trajectory, I think somebody with his attitude as a person and a player, losing might have been better for his career overall going forward than winning would be.
Right. I mean, it's
Um,
possible. It's hard to
it,
know.
yeah, and like I said, it's really really hard to say, but you know, comparatively, we talk about James Conrad, who did something absolutely asinine to go out there and win.
Mhm.
Um, and it just seems like he's taken a back seat this whole season. There's
Yeah,
almost
you're
there's
right.
almost nothing left to work for, or
And maybe what you're thinking is Aaron gets hungrier.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. And I think that for somebody, as much as we have gone and talked a lot about how, he has this positive outlook, he wanted it.
Oh yeah.
That whole final round, there was a difference, between, I'm just going to make the best next shot I could possibly make to, um, I want to, I truly want to win this,
Yes.
and I'm going to do anything I can to win this. And a couple of times, it might have not been the best decision to make, whether he executed it or not, you know, and he left it all out there and came up short.
Yep.
If Paul Macbeth wins European Open, however slight the chance may be, I think that there might be a chance that he doesn't win this event.
Right.
There was a hunger factor to losing the European and coming over to Worlds, already being the most, important tournament of the year for Paul, and it
Absolutely.
always will be. And then to have played essentially one of the best rounds that the Beast in Nokia has ever seen, or the best weekends, not necessarily a single round, but the best overall weekends that he's ever seen, and still come up short. There's a light switch for players who have that hunger and desire, and I'm really really hoping that there is a little light switch down there in Aaron Gossage, and this is going to flip him up.
Yeah.
And This
I
is this
I
is going to
I
turn
can
on that desire and make him want more.
I think we see that. I truly do. It may not be for the remainder of this year, but coming out next year, I would not doubt it. Um, so just to talk about Paul a little bit, um, some of the moments coming down the stretch there where Aaron made mistakes that Paul previously had not capitalized on in rounds prior,
Right.
he capitalized in round 5. And
Yes.
that was the difference, and it still came down to the wire. Um, so if he did not capitalize and make some of those ridiculous saves, um, or birdie putts as well, like uh, he did Macbeth things. Like that's what we're used to seeing out of somebody that it can almost like he said, wheel a disc into the basket when he needs it. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how far away he is. Like if he knows he's got to put it in, don't count him out on
Yeah.
putting it in the basket. And that's one of the things that I will say that Aaron probably done wrong towards the end was he played a little too game planish, little too safe. He stuck to his plan when I feel like in order to win that, when Paul already smelt blood in the water, I feel like he needed to switch it up just a little bit. Um, do I think
I
that
kind
he?
of I kind of disagree with that actually.
Mhm.
Um, and I will use one hole as an example for why I disagree with that, and
Okay.
that's 16. Because 16, you basically had an entire lineup of announcers saying, lay it up, force Paul to make a putt. Now everything turned out fine. Everything turned out is it was as if he laid it up anyways. He
Right.
took the three, but he went for that putt.
Yes.
He went for it. And I think that um he really went out there with a good game plan, and I think that that game plan showed. He has an arm power that allowed him to play safe shots that were still aggressive, which might look like it was too much to game plan, but 16 was really a good sign that he's not just there to play the game plan to hope he has a chance to win. He went for the win on that putt. I
Right.
think that, nerves just crept up a little too much on the
He
putting
he
green.
definitely wanted to play on the safe side though with the low putt though. Like I even said it before he putted it. He was lining up low. He knew that if
Right.
he was gonna miss, he was gonna doink off the basket. Um. So with that being said, it was still a safe run. Um. I
But but for him it's not because he only missed high
once that I remember.
twice. He missed high twice. And both times were in correction of missing low.
Hmm.
So,
This
you
one you
know,
could just see he was lining up low. Like it was easy to see.
right.
Um, and I do not blame him at all. Like that's the miss, right? And he talked about this is he's like, no matter what my shot was, I aimed for it with the nerves. I aimed for my miss. If it, um, if I can't
Right.
hit exactly where I want to have the least likely, or the less harming outcome as possible.
Yeah, but
Um,
I mean on that green,
mhm.
on that for example, on that green, you and I were literally joking. What if Paul lays up and it just catches, edge
Yeah, yeah,
slightly wrong and rolls down into the water? There's no such thing as there's no safe miss on that green. The chances of that catching edge and still rolling into the water are honestly just as high on low cage as they are on off a band.
yeah,
That's how dangerous that green is. So the fact that he goes for it on 16, I think it showed me enough that he's not just there to play the game plan and hope that it's enough, that he was willing to put a little bit of risk out there when it was necessary.
right. In chat saying Gossage definitely had the game plan. Paul has said that he started throwing his lines to get in his head. And we had kind of pointed that out. Like we honestly thought it was kind of the opposite. We thought it was more of the intimidation factor, which we are pretty sure that had a big role to play with it. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, Paul did come out and say that he did start throwing his lines, um, strictly just to get in Aaron's head. I don't think that actually got in his head. I think Aaron got in his own head strictly because of the stage was so big. He was about to
Yes.
win the world championship. Um,
Right.
I I don't think he needed any help from Paul. I'm just being honest. Like it's like putting
Right.
one of us, somebody that's never won an elite series, or a major, on the stage saying, "Hey, this is you've got 18 holes left to play, and you're in first. Don't lose." It's like,
Yeah.
and by the way, there is a 200-foot giant fire-breathing dragon 2 foot behind you.
By the
Run.
way,
You know what I mean? Like,
that that fire breathing dragon is the best of all time, and basically every possible knight in shining armor that has tried to take this dragon down has lost at some point to this dragon.
exactly. Ends up crushed metal and bones. So, uh, exactly. That it's one of those things where you can even Paul can play his mind games and intimidate as much as he wants, but I don't think it actually worked on Gossage as much as Gossage got in his own head. Uh,
Yeah. I mean,
so
I'm sure it was there,
yeah,
you know.
yeah, eh, yeah, but How much? I guess we'll never know. Um,
I mean, unless he ever talks about it, who knows?
which he might. I know he was on the Nick and Matt show this past
Yep,
week. So or last night, Sunday night,
yep.
some night. I'm sorry. Um, but yeah, I'll be checking that out as well to get some insight on that. Um, but uh, we were planning on doing like an hour episode. We're almost at an hour and a half. It is getting late. Um,
Yeah, it's my bedtime. I was just looking at the same thing.
yep. So, I'm gonna go ahead and thank another one of our sponsors, Disc and Disciples. You should definitely check their schedule out on UDisc. They play PDGA sanctioned rounds on Monday, Tuesdays, and Saturdays. It's free to play if you just want to come and hang out and play with them. Or you can grab a sanctioned league round pass and check out their gear as well at store.discanddisciples.org. They also put on a lot of tournaments throughout the year to help fundraise for various causes, both in the disc golf community and beyond. Um, so, huge shout out to them for doing what they do, and thank you for helping support this podcast.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Disc and Disciples. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Um, yeah, you know, I mean, I first of all, the 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 playoff hole.
Yeah.
I mean,
16,
how?
17, and 18 is treacherous, regardless.
Yeah, and there was a little moment. I'm not gonna lie, when the coin got flipped, and all I could think about was the Chiefs and Bills.
Oh, God. It's like everybody deserves a
It's like
shot on offense.
I was I was just like, wow, this I don't know why this moment right now. Maybe it's because it was Worlds versus one of the other playoffs we've seen this year with a coin flip, but it really did for a second. It felt like, wow, whoever goes first, and it was actually the opposite in my mind, comparatively to the the Bills and Chiefs, where it's like whoever gets the ball has the advantage, right? Obviously, we know that.
Right.
For me, it was like whoever wins this toss and throws first is at a massive disadvantage on 16 right now. Because not only do you have to throw first, you have to put it close. Um, because that's it. That's what you get to
Yeah,
do. You either put it close
you
or
get
you
to
put
a
it on the wall.
right.
And if you put it on the wall, he's just going to put it on the wall.
Yep.
Like the amount of pressure. And it brings me actually to my one of my two Daniel's drama topics, um, which is the painted line versus the natural water OB. How do you feel about it?
I don't like it. Um, I the only way that I think that it should happen, okay? Now hear me out on this. Is think about it like it's a road, okay? And
Right.
your your disc the side of the road is grass and road and grass and road and grass and road and grass and road, right? So there's no clear line. Oh, well, it's touching grass even though it's 3 inches into the road. Um,
It's touching a singular blade of grass that wasn't cut properly.
exactly. All right. So on that, I feel like there should be a designated line, right? Um, to where follow the edge of the road, grass or no grass. With
See, and I think
this, um, I feel like water level, whatever is the most normal water level, is where the OB should be. Okay. Um, I'm fine with that. Truly, I'm fine with that. If the water level is normally there and you paint beside the water around the edge and the water goes down, it goes up, whatever. I'm cool with that. But having it so far up off of the bank, I do not like.
so. I'm going to be in disagreement with you on this one. I think number one, complaining about it is useless. I think it's one of the dumbest things that we can complain about, and I think the fact that people are trying to illegitimize Paul's world championship because of a
Because it
painted
didn't go
line
in water.
that everybody plays, and that, mind you, Paul Macbeth also went out of bounds because of this line on day 4 is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Three things. Number one, it's there, everybody plays it. That should be the end of the story. But I'm going to continue on anyways. Number two, player safety is always the number one concern when you talk about things like this. An OB line might always, be placed there for player safety, whether that's another fairway, whether that's a road, so on and so forth, whatever it is. Sometimes footing is the issue. For example, you have other courses like the course we played a couple of weeks ago, where hole one in Eureka Lake has the rocks that line that entire thing. Great. That's awesome. Waterline is still the OB, but you get a meter of relief off the rocks. Awesome. That's a really cool rule, but it also creates extraneous backups because people don't read the rule books properly and then they don't know how to handle the situation properly. And TDs always, always, always try to avoid rules like that. Eureka Lake is one of those weird ones where it's been like that for so long. It's always going to be that way, I think. And the whoever the TD is that handles Eureka Lake, I don't know who he is off the top of my head. I could look if I really wanted to. He is accepting of the fact that there is a weird rule. Now, the thing is, when you also put those weird rules into place, those kinds of rules generally have to be approved. And when you're talking about the world level of this, you're saying that if there is a player safety issue with footing down in that section, which is part of the issue, then they have to create a rule then that says, okay, well, everything off is OB, but they get a meter off of, and then they still have to paint a line or some sort of designation and say they get a meter off of this section because that's unsafe, even though it's in bounds. It creates slowdowns, it creates backups, it creates misplays, and it creates headaches and confusion,
Right.
right?
Um, I mean, I
Number
okay, go
number
ahead.
3, the last one, is that this has actually been an issue at this course for a long period of time. The line has been there for a long time because the water levels change there not only dramatically, but in very quick fashion. It's very
Mhm.
likely that they have flooding on that course, so a single night of rain could change that OB. So if we go with the situation like you were talking about where, well, maybe the water line is still the OB and we just paint the line, that means that that OB changes just because of weather, and that is not good for play.
So, natural. So, in good weather, alright, this is like when good weather is around, you paint the OB. If the water rises, then the water becomes the OB.
Yeah,
Um,
but then it still becomes that same situation with rule clarification, misplays, and backups.
why?
Because there's two different rules on the books, and you have to determine which one is correct, and then you have to call TDs or you have to call a rules official.
Well,
You have
if
to
the
call a
water's
marshal.
above the line and it goes into the water, any water on the course is OB. Okay. So
You're
that
right,
one's
but also at Eureka Lake, they have played this rock relief
rock is
rule.
not water.
I know, but listen to me. They've played this rock relief rule for years, literally since I've started watching, professional disc golf. Since long before that, they have this rule, and it still causes backups every single year. It literally caused backups on the lead card this year.
Right.
Now, it was the lead card, so it didn't matter. But if those backups are happening everywhere in the course because of rules that are harder to determine because they're variable instead of set in stone, then it creates issues. And TDs generally are going to shy away from that.
Right.
Pace of play
I
is
just
so
think that that
important
one's
in
not
disc golf right
gonna be
now.
the same kinda issue as the rock. Um,
It is. It is. And that's what I'm saying. Because if you're talking about that lower section being unsafe to play because maybe it's ankle deep mud if you try to step in it. In fact, that's actually really common on golf courses that have those types of ponds.
right.
Is that is just mush.
Really mush.
So that means
And if
they can't
that's
stand there.
right, if that's
So
the
if they can't
case,
stand
it's
there, then it
100% putting the
then
line
it
above it. Then
yeah.
because your second thing about the safety, I 100% agree with. However, it looked really dry, but that's another thing that you have to think about as well, is what happens if it does rain, kind of barring the weather, which
Yeah.
is very unpredictable there. How does the footing get then? And am I mistaken, or did during DDO did they not have a painted line in front of the wall as well? I know they didn't have it
Yes.
n- during Worlds, which I'm super glad because that was one of the major things I did not like. Um,
Yes.
because why have a
Um, I c-
barrier there if you're
I'm gonna be completely honest. I can't remember if they had it at DDO this year. However, I know that they've had the line on the wall at some point in time in the past. It might have been
Yeah,
this year, it might have been last year, it might have been 3 years ago. I don't know,
right.
but I
I
know that
do
that line
remember it,
has
and
been
I
there.
did not like that. So I'm I'm willing to give and take here. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
take the line off of the wall that's not touching water, and you're fine, right? You
yeah,
put the line anywhere you want. Um, because then no matter where the line is, no matter where the water is, it's still an island. You've created some
yes,
sort of play that they have to get it into. Everybody plays the same one.
yeah,
I just personally don't like the look. Um, I don't
no.
like the look of painted OB on an island that's already an island.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, the conceptualization. I agree with the sentiment. However, I do not agree with number 1 illegitimizing a world championship for it.
No, not at all.
And number
I
2,
mean, I am
I
not
also don't
on that
I I don't
as
agree
well.
with the
Like,
people who I mean, the amount of people who attacked um EMAC for that on the course design, just for him to come back at every single one of them and say, "Hey, it wasn't even part of my course design. PDGA required me to put it there because of they've had issues on this island in the past.
right.
It's actually there because of complaints that they've had in the past." So, and I'm not going to go too
I
deep into
mean,
that.
that
You can
honestly
find that kind of
surprises
information
me
in the past if you
because
really want to.
PDGA, never mind.
All it
So,
Yeah, but in terms of, like, player safety, all it takes is one decent complaint because PDGA, essentially you insure these types of events and they don't want to be held liable for that.
yeah,
An injury happens that was preventable. Oh yeah, 100%. They are going to avoid that at all costs.
yeah, I agree.
So it is what it is. Now, Daniel's drama number 2, and then when we're done with this, we can wrap up the show and go to bed. Man, I'm tired. This can be a quick one too. If you're still in chat, I want to hear your take. If you guys are listening at a later date, send us a PM or a DM on Instagram, Twitter, here on Facebook. I want to hear your take on this. But I really thought it was interesting uh, having Paul Macbeth call out the arguable, still withstanding goat of disc golf for not being present. What are your
I
thoughts?
love it. I do. I mean, that was his moment to say he's not the goat because he's not around. That was
Yep,
his shot at saying, "Hey, your so-called goat doesn't care about us. I'm here.
100%.
I'm playing. I'm supporting disc golf. I'm putting it on the map. Get on my back. I'm the goat." That's what I heard, and
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more because there's no sense in somebody being the greatest of all time and just completely blindsiding himself from disc golf. Um, he still plays.
Yeah.
He still talks to all the older players, old heads in the sport, the course designers and such. But he's just collecting his check from Innova, and he could be doing so much to grow the sport. He really could, and he's not.
I mean, look at the difference of what goats in other sports do. Um, you know, Michael Jordan and Kobe before, rest in peace.
Right?
The amount of things that Kobe was doing immediately after retiring to continue to pour money into the sport at the youth level, at the
Absolutely.
female
Yes,
divisions,
his
and what
WNBA,
he
uh, what he did for the WNBA will probably not be topped. I mean, it was. I don't know. There's a
you
lot
know
of things that.
Michael Jordan literally owns a team. I
Yeah.
mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not expecting Ken Kleiman to go out there and freaking buy a disc manufacturing company or something and
No.
start a team of players. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. But be around, encourage the youth to play. Don't just be that. Ah, yeah, I'm gonna go out with my old drinking buddies.
Yeah.
I mean, even Tiger Woods still, as much as he is playing, he does his, you know, father son events that he's done recently. I mean, how huge is that in
Right.
encouraging the younger generation? Like, not only can I play golf, I can go play against Tiger and his son.
Yeah.
That's a real possibility, kind of a thing. Be here, be
Be
around for
present.
the sport.
Yep.
You are the all-time greatest player in terms of major championships, which is what sports like this are literally judged on. And nobody really, like, notwithstanding for you for actually saying, like, well, he does do this and he does do this, people who really, really, really care about disc golf will know that sort of stuff. Your average fan probably doesn't even know who Ken Climo is anymore.
Nope.
And that's
Most of them don't know Ken Climo other than, "Hey, there's a Ken Climo on this disc. Anybody know what this is?" You know what I mean? And
people literally don't know why Ken Climo is on a disc anymore, outside of the fact that it says 12-time world champion.
right. I
Great.
and the thing about it is like the Disc Golf Pro Tour is not making a story about him. They said, "Okay, Ken Climo Player of the Year." Who's that? You know
Yeah,
what I
there were
mean?
literally people who said that.
There was people who said, who's that?" When the Lombardi Trophy gets presented every single year, there's a story. There is a show on the TV of Vince Lombardi way back in the day talking some memorable moments. It's like that's
Yep.
why this trophy is named after this person. So
Yep.
if they did that about King Climo, they would only have the old footage and it wouldn't be anything that he's doing now, even though he could still be present.
Absolutely. Get this. What Since we have so eloquently moved into the world of documentaries this year,
Yes.
that would be a great start for Ken Climo if he did, hear Paul Macbeth and decided, you know what? Honestly, he's right. How cool would it be for the first thing that he did would be to come back and do a documentary about his career?
It ends early. I mean, it, I it's a history lesson, at best, which I would watch. I'm not gonna lie, but I think what he's saying is like
I'm
he's
saying I'm saying, like, as a, like, if he hears Paul Macbeth and he decides, you know what, I am going to come back. I'm saying, how cool would that be to be like the first thing he does?
I don't like it.
I think it would be great.
I don't. I mean, it makes him more money, but
No, but it's not just about that. I mean, okay, if Ken Climo starts coming back and being
how does
present for
that
any of the
help?
events, because nobody knows who he is. We're
I
literally
know.
talking about it right now that people have no idea who the hell this guy is.
I
So
mean,
paint a picture, tell the world who he is, and then bring him back into the sport. But he has
see,
to be the
that's
one
the
who choose
thing
that.
is like,
He has
would
to be
he
the one to
come
choose that.
back if he just did the documentary? It would be fine if he did a documentary and then came back in as something. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying,
Okay.
what if that was the first thing he did? Like, how
Okay.
cool would that be?
So
Not like
if he had it
that's
made,
the only thing he ever
okay.
does again.
Okay.
I'm saying that's the first thing he did. How cool
Like
would that
that's the
documentary be?
reintroduction. Okay.
That's the, hey, you might not know who Ken Climo is,
Let me remind you.
but this is why you should.
Okay. And then
And then
he's
he's
present
and then he's
again?
present.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But what I
Mhm.
was getting from that was he's just dropping a documentary so people know who he is, and it's like,
Oh,
that's a money scheme, and I didn't like it. So,
no, no. I'm saying, if, because the thing is, if you, at that point, yeah, you're right. It is just a money scheme. But I'm saying, if he truly heard Paul Macbeth and he said, you know what, he's right. I'm just saying, how cool would that be to get that younger generation, a look into who this guy is, and
right.
then people have a chance to actually see, and and then the next time that they go out to, uh we'll use WR Jackson as an example, since WR is mostly, Applin, Georgia is mostly Innova out there, and then
And it's
you see
literally
him out at
called the
Champions Cup,
Champions Cup with the
and
champ. I mean, that
yeah,
it's set up
I,
for him.
and then you see him out there presenting the trophy or
Right. Just
doing
something as
something.
simple as that.
and then it's not just 90% of the disc golf community currently because of this explosion we've had. you know if you don't give it any context, 90% of the community is going to look at that situation and say, who is that guy and why is he the one handing off the trophy?
Right.
Like,
Why is he called the
what's so
champ?
special? Why is he the one getting the handshake from the player right now?
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't
I
know.
agree.
I
I'm
really
I'm
do.
with that.
I hope two things, and then I'm done for the rest of the show. Number one, I hope that Kenny heard that, and I hope I'm not saying you need to be like the face of disc golf. Okay, that's not what we want from you, but we do want you to be present and be around. Do something that encourages the growth of the sport in a healthy way. Um, and then number two, I have to say, I hope Paul Macbeth is as serious about calling Kenny out as he is about being what he is calling Kenny out for in the future.
Yep.
And I know that he is as of right now because his foundation proves that.
Yes.
Um, but I really hope he continues to do that when he does get to the point where he's no longer the player.
Yep.
He's no longer the champ. He is just the old guy who won a lot.
Yeah.
And I hope that he is present continually and going forward. So it's exciting for me, but also a little tentative because we've seen goats not be present in this sport. So I really hope Paul's the one to change that stigma.
Right. And I think he will. Um. So yeah, that does it for us. Um. Thank you all for listening. Thanks for tuning in to the live broadcast and post as well. Uh. Thank you all to all of our listeners. We really truly appreciate you. From wherever you are, thank you for listening. Um, we will
Eh,
be back next Tuesday. Hopefully, we might get someone lined up. Since we're uh gonna be going over a silver series, I do believe. Um,
Sure are.
so hopefully we can do something for you, like that. And either way, we will see you next weekend. And this is us signing off. We'll see y'all on the next hole. Peace.
Peace.